Patriots, rebels, outlaws, and pirates. We are inundated with numbers every day. Polls tell us what people think. COVID cases are tracked daily. The number of votes in a stolen election. But all these numbers are not just interesting trivia. They are used to make government policy and influence our individual choices, big and small. The question is, are the numbers right? Do they make sense? Can we trust them? Our lives have been completely upended due to COVID-19. This not very deadly virus has resulted in unprecedented and tyrannical government action. The government and media has pounded us every single day with the narrative that this virus is unique and deadly, that it's highly contagious, and that for our safety we need to set aside any love of cherished rights and follow their most draconian edicts. Every day we are breathlessly given ever-increasing numbers of cases and deaths by wide-eyed reporters and somber bureaucrats. The fear-mongering has had its effect. Most Americans believe that COVID has killed 9% of the population, or 30 million people. Currently, as I'm taping, we are surpassing 14 million cases and heading towards 300,000 deaths in the United States. We are led to believe that this number would increase exponentially. The healthcare system would be overwhelmed, and millions of people would die if you don't wear your mask. But what if it's all a lie? The daily numbers are supplied by the Johns Hopkins Medical Center COVID-19 tracking map. Certainly such a prestigious institution lends credibility to such numbers. Who's going to question them? Apparently, they've questioned themselves. On November 27th, an article called "A Closer Look at the Death Rate from COVID-19" appeared in the Johns Hopkins newsletter. In it, Genevieve Briand analyzed the death rate from COVID-19 and compared it to the overall death rate and the rates of death from other causes. By looking at statistics supplied by the CDC, she found some interesting facts. Number one, the overall death rate has not increased over the past 7 or 8 months. It had been running between 50,000 to 70,000 a month before COVID, and COVID-19 has not been adding an additional 40 to 50,000 deaths a month. There was not even an increase in the number of deaths among older people, supposedly the most vulnerable, or any other age group for that matter. So to make this clear, since the pandemic began, since the deadly novel coronavirus has gripped the world, there has not been an increase in the total number of deaths, nor has the percentage of deaths among age groups changed. Then she looked at the rates of death from specific causes. Every year, heart disease tops the list, followed by respiratory diseases, and then influenza/pneumonia. Now you would expect that when you add 250,000 deaths from COVID, it would add to those totals. We have already seen that this is not the case. In fact, Brian found that death from other causes had dropped precipitously and in direct proportion to the increase in COVID deaths. Imagine that. So either there has been a cure for heart disease and other respiratory illnesses we have not heard about, or there has been a reclassification of deaths. Obviously, it's the latter. She came to an interesting conclusion. She stated that, quote, all of this points to no evidence that COVID-19 created any excess deaths. Total death numbers are not above normal death numbers. We found no evidence to the contrary, end quote. She also stated that we have no, quote, choice but to point to some misclassification, end quote. Really? This goes back to May, when the esteemed Dr. Bricks said that deaths with, not of, COVID were classified as COVID deaths. And a few months ago, President Trump was blasted for citing a study that said only 6% of COVID deaths were actually from COVID-19 alone. Now, if you take that 6% figure to what we have now, that would bring us to around 17,000 deaths. Not many more than the 12,000 caused by the swine flu in 2009. The point of all this is that COVID is not causing widespread death. It is not the Black Plague, and the numbers are all a lie. Add that to the fraudulent PCR test to inflate cases, and the numbers do not support the government's tyrannical policies. What was the reaction to this article in the Johns Hopkins newsletter? They retracted it, not because it was wrong, but because it was being used as proof by those who think the whole pandemic is overblown and the reaction to it is nonsensical. But how could you not come to that conclusion? Not only do the statistics demonstrate this fact, but the policy reaction to it is an affront to common sense. If it is as contagious as they say, a single breath dispersing an aerosol of infected droplets that will infect everyone in a room, why do they have to shove that thing and scrape your brain to find the evidence? Wouldn't a simple oral swab be sufficient? If masks work, which has not always been the opinion of the technocrats in charge, why must we social distance? And if that works, why the masks? How many people can be in a group? Is it 10? Is it 6? Is it 25? Sounds rather arbitrary. Curfews, do they make any sense? Does the virus become more deadly or contagious at night? Why won't I get it if I go to Walmart, but if I go to my favorite restaurant, I will? Why do these severe restrictions apply to us, but they don't seem to apply to our esteemed leaders? There is something very nefarious at work here. Two things are obvious. Number one, COVID-19 is not a deadly plague that's going to kill us all. Second, all the hype and fear is used to assert control and destroy our current economic system. We cannot let this charade go on. We cannot let them continue to manipulate us until we are in a position from which there is no escape. We need to stop cooperating, stop complying with all these foolish guidelines and unconstitutional edicts. It's time to get back to living.